get out to the snow berm.
A whole lot of people digging out, and that is what is ahead for people in the Sierra tonight. They don't have much time to do it either with another storm system headed their way.
If you live in it, then you're used to it. But if you're not, I would just say don't come up here if you don't have to.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. Tonight, new storms are causing problems up in the Pacific Northwest. In Washington, heavy snow and ice hit the northwest part of that state today, closing roads and schools. In Oregon, transportation crews have plows and other equipment out clearing snow and fallen trees from the roads. And in California, conditions finally clear just enough today to get traffic moving once again along Interstate 80 near Lake Tahoe. Let's give you a live look at conditions along I-80 just outside of Soda Springs tonight. And you can see from this shot, we have some traffic moving very slowly there along that snow-covered highway. As KTVU's Tom Vakar reports, crews are warning people traveling through this area to be extra cautious and be prepared for conditions to change.
With this most recent atmospheric river having barreled through the mountains, what is the long-range forecast?
If we have an average next few weeks, we'll actually be right at the typical peak of the snowpack compared to historical data.
As of Monday, the snowpack is already 119% of average on this date, with water content 98% of average. Big atmospheric storms, however, are still possible.
I'd say the next 3 to 4 weeks are going to be really critical for what we get in the snowpack in total in terms of those big, juicy storms.
Thing everybody worries about. Well, what about next year, the year after that? We don't really have any information on that.
Closed since Friday, Palisades Tahoe got 8 feet of snow during the storm.
It's a behemoth of a snowstorm, but our crews are ready. They've been out there working day and night.
Sunday, there were mountaintop winds of 190 miles an hour, the highest reaches of hurricane category.
Today, we have part of our lower mountain at Palisades open and some lifts on the Alpine side open. There is still so much work to be done.
With this storm, Palisades, already called the spring skiing capital, will be open until very late May. Last year, it lasted into July. Roadwise, Highway 50 is open. Interstate 80 opened early Monday for automobiles only. Big rigs were permitted in the afternoon, but Monday evening we'll see snow again.
Overall, it's not a major concern for us, definitely compared to what we just saw.
For drivers, however, expect cleanup crews working 24/7 as well as this.
Expect chain controls. I don't expect those lifting today by any means, but you can make it through.
That said, Tahoe is open for business.
The roads in town are clear. We have a lot of snow. The last couple of days have been great. So it's a miracle March here.
Skiers already here at South Shore tell Rip and Willie Ski Shop this.
There's a fresh powder every morning because of the storm that's been here. And then Heavenly and all the resorts have done a great job and opening as early as they can.
Finally, the 30 largest reservoirs are well above average for this date. Tom Vakar, KTVU Fox 2 News.
People in Northwest Washington got their day started with a mix of snow and ice. Mount Vernon police posted images of heavy snow to social media, urging drivers to be ready for treacherous travel conditions. A little farther south from here, icy conditions forced the closure of Highway 18 outside of Seattle. Several schools canceled classes or they started late in an effort to keep people safe. We're also seeing a whole lot of new snowfall in Oregon tonight. At higher elevations of Clatsop County, snow is covering many of the roads today. Closer to Portland, the Washington County Sheriff's Office closed a stretch of Highway 26 today because of downed power lines. Let's continue tonight's weather team coverage with KTVU meteorologist Rosemary Orozco, who is tracking the stormy conditions all across the West. Rosemary?
Yes, Alex, as you said, the blizzard has moved on, but the wet weather continues. The rain and the snow over much of the West. Here's a look at Seattle this afternoon. 45 degrees, mostly cloudy skies and scatter showers beginning to taper off. As we get into the coming days, the Pacific Northwest will get a break, but the winter storm warnings as well as the advisories still posted tonight and into tomorrow for many areas. As we take a look at the Boise, Idaho area winter weather advisory that goes until tomorrow night. Meanwhile, areas over Oregon also seeing advisories that will go until tomorrow morning, others until tomorrow afternoon, and California still with advisories in place. But notice it is north of the Lake Tahoe area, so the wet weather looks to be primarily to the north. The Lake Tahoe area will have the possibility of snow, but nothing like we experienced over the weekend. Meanwhile, this is the system here that is providing the active weather through the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. This system is going to move closer to the coast over the next 24 to 36 hours, and that is what will bring more wet weather to California. It looks like into Wednesday. This will also include Southern California. Here's a look at the forecast getting into tonight as well as tomorrow morning. I'll stop it for you. Notice the snow still primarily over the Oregon area as well as Idaho and Northern California. Still seeing the wet weather all the way down to about the Bay Area. We will have the opportunity for scattered showers. The snow in the Sierra primarily north of I-80, although we can't rule out the possibility of some snow in the greater Lake Tahoe area, which means these chains as well as the snow tires will be needed for tomorrow. Here's a look at Wednesday morning. Remember that little system I showed you out in the Pacific? This is what is moving ashore on Wednesday and will keep the showers going, or at least the possibility thereof, for the entire state of California, even Southern California. So giving you a look at the 3-day outlook, notice the Seattle area for tomorrow, mainly dry. Going to be cool, but dry is the key here. Tuesday will be an unsettled day for the Bay Area, but really it looks like Wednesday before the rain moves in once again, and then dry on Thursday. Meanwhile, Southern California going to get in on that rain by Wednesday as well. It doesn't last though. By Thursday, we're getting another break for the state with more wet weather expected on the weekend. And before I let you go, Alex, have to point out Phoenix, upper 70s expected for tomorrow, where we do have MLB training going on there. So beautiful spring-like weather in the forecast for them. Back to you.
That's one of the places to head right now. Rosemary, thank you. On the eve of a pivotal moment in the presidential primary race, work is already underway tonight to process ballots. Election workers at Los Angeles County's new ballot processing center are very busy. They're handling ballots from voters who took advantage of early voting options. Those voters got a jump start on Super Tuesday when the most delegates are up for grabs in a single day. 4 West Coast states, including Alaska, California, Utah, and Colorado, are among the Super Tuesday states. Voters in a total of more than a dozen states and 1 territory will cast ballots tomorrow, and they could bring former President Trump and President Biden significantly closer to clinching their party's nominations. About a third of all delegates are up for grabs tomorrow. And today, the Supreme Court ruled states cannot bar former President Trump from the ballot. The justices rejected a Colorado challenge to Trump's eligibility based on a constitutional provision that prevents insurrectionists from holding office. Fox's Caroline Shively has more tonight on this decision and another case that could affect this year's election.
The Supreme Court ruled that Colorado had gone too far, and former President Trump will stay on the primary ballot. But the decision applies to all 50 states, coming just one day before Super Tuesday.
It was a very important decision. We're very well crafted.
President Trump, usually a critic of the U.S. court system, called the justices' ruling keeping him on the Colorado ballot unifying and inspirational.
I think it will go a long way toward bringing our country together, which our country needs.
At the center of the case, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment bars a person who has participated in an insurrection from holding federal office. The Colorado court ruled in December that Trump was ineligible because of the alleged role he played in the Capitol riot in 2021, even though he has never been charged. Reversing that decision, the U.S. Supreme Court held responsibility for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates rests with Congress and not the states.
The entire court spoke against it, all 9.
The ruling not only reverses decisions in Colorado, Maine, and Illinois, it also stops efforts in 7 other states with similar court cases.
if this was allowed to go forward, the decision to unilaterally remove the choice from the people, that it would create an untenable patchwork across the country.
Mr. Trump faces much greater legal jeopardy next month when the justices will hear his argument that he can't be prosecuted for efforts to overturn the 2020 election because he's covered by presidential immunity. In Washington, Caroline Shively, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Vice President Kamala Harris is heading west. She is set to visit Phoenix this Friday, one day after President Biden's State of the Union address. The vice president will then head to Las Vegas on Saturday, and that will end up being her 11th visit to the state of Nevada since taking office. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, masked gunmen opened fire at a birthday party in California, killing 4 people and injuring several others. Tonight, hear from a heartbroken mother after 2 of her daughters were shot. Also, an Arizona Oregon daughter is hoping to set an example with a climb nearly 20,000 feet up. We have her special message about conquering Mount Kilimanjaro. The man accused of killing a Washington state trooper appeared in court today. The suspect, Raul Benitez Santana, was driving on Interstate 5 in Marysville Saturday when authorities say he crashed into a state patrol cruiser, killing Trooper Christopher Gadd. Probable cause documents say Santana admitted to smoking pot and drinking 2 beers just a few hours before that crash. The judge today found probable cause for vehicular homicide and vehicular assault charges and set Santana's bail at $1 million. A witness who rushed over to try to help that trooper spoke with reporters outside the courtroom.
And I'm really, really sorry. Sorry for what happened because I have a 5-year-old. I cannot imagine, not being there.
Trooper Gadd was 27 years old. He leaves behind a wife and a 2-year-old girl. He worked as a trooper for less than 2 years before that deadly crash. In Northern California, an overnight chase and shootout in Sonoma County left 4 sheriff's deputies injured and a suspect dead. This all began just after midnight when deputies responded to reports of a man with a rifle at a nightclub just outside of the city of Santa Rosa. Deputies say they fired at that suspect after he started shooting first. He then led those deputies on a chase, which ended with the suspect crashing. The suspect was pronounced dead at the scene, although authorities say it's unclear if he died from the crash or from the shooting.
Our detectives are currently working diligently to put together the timeline of events to include the reason why the suspect chose to engage in the actions he did.
4 deputies were hurt. 1 deputy is in critical condition with a head injury. 1 was shot in the lower leg, and 2 others have hand injuries. In Monterey County, a mass shooting outside of a house where a birthday party was happening left 4 people dead and 7 others injured. Police in King City say 3 masked men drove up to that home last night and opened fire in the front yard. KION reporter Natalie Gutierrez spoke to some of the victims' family members, including a devastated mother who says this shooting took the life of one of her daughters and seriously injured another.
Everyone who was here yesterday were farmers. A distraught mother was not able to hold back her tears, a family searching for answers after a shooting killed 4 people and wounded 7 others. The family tells me Mario Guzman and Alicia Ramirez Aparicio were 2 of the 4 who were killed. Felipa Ramirez is Alicia's mother. She is hoping police will track down whoever is responsible for her daughter's death. I want there to be justice. I want there to be justice for what happened to my daughters. I want justice as soon as possible. Felipa says she was not there at the time of the shooting and says her youngest daughter also got hit by gunfire. Mario's sister says he had went to the family gathering to buy tacos and that's when he was shot. His car is still parked on the street in front of the home where the shooting happened, his sister receiving the devastating news Monday morning.
I had faith that he was going to be alive, but today at 10 in the morning, they told me he died.
Now all the family can do is hope police make an arrest and that the rest of the family can recover.
And that was KION's Natalie Gutierrez reporting for us tonight. Police have announced a $20,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the suspects involved in that shooting. 11 people were hurt after falling from a border wall in San Diego over the weekend. 10 of them had to be hospitalized with minor to moderate injuries. And this comes days after a man died trying to get around the border wall. In 2019, the Trump administration began replacing those barriers with a 30-foot high wall. Medical officials in San Diego say since that time, they've seen an increase in trauma cases from people who have fallen from border walls. From fewer than 60 patients in 2019, that number went up to 450 just 2 years later. A woman was rescued today after falling 15 feet down a dry well the night before. It happened in an open field in the town of Chandler, just outside of Phoenix. Firefighters say the woman went through a chain link fence and then somehow fell into that hole last night. She didn't call for help until this morning.
It was a smooth operation. Patient did really well communicating with us the whole time. All the crews on scene were able to work together and communicate what they were seeing, any safety issues. But it was actually a really a safe operation, and we did it pretty quick.
Crews used a mechanical device to lift that woman to safety. Firefighters say she did injure her leg and hip during that fall. 4 astronauts, including a man from Washington, are on their way to the International Space Station. Fox's Jonathan Seri has the details tonight on how they will be spending their time in space.
4 more humans are in low Earth orbit after an overnight launch that lit up the night sky over Florida's Space Coast.
Engines full power and liftoff of NASA Crew 8. Go Falcon, go SpaceX, and go NASA.
Perched atop a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, a Dragon space capsule named Endeavour carried 3 NASA astronauts and 1 Russian cosmonaut into space. They'll spend the next 6 months aboard the International Space Station conducting experiments, including studies on the effects of long-duration space travel on the human body. One of the astronauts, Michael Barat, is also a medical doctor.
Between this last flight and this flight, I actually put out the 2nd edition of a space medicine textbook. And we're actually in the process of doing a 3rd edition of that space medicine textbook. And each time I do that, I try to figure out how right we are. And then I fly. I've done that twice, and I figure out how wrong we are because we keep discovering new things.
NASA officials are especially interested in these studies because later this decade they hope to send humans to the lunar South Pole, where they believe large quantities of water may be frozen inside permanently shaded craters. That water could potentially support astronauts on long-duration lunar missions or be split into oxygen and hydrogen to create rocket propellant for crewed missions to Mars. At Kennedy Space Center in Florida, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
Oregon lawmakers have a new plan to get rid of daylight saving time. Today, the state's full Senate passed a bill to keep Oregon on standard time all year long. This would take effect only if Washington and California do the same thing. If Washington and California don't follow suit by 2034, the Oregon bill would be repealed. Next, this bill goes to the State House for consideration. The concept of daylight saving time was created around 1916, and it was meant to provide more sunlight while people were active outside and help people save on fuel. Critics, though, say the switch between daylight saving time and standard time disrupts sleep patterns. More roads into Yosemite National Park partially reopened today. Park officials closed Yosemite entirely on Thursday because of those huge storms that moved in, and they made the roads unsafe for drivers. Several highways partially reopened yesterday, and officials say visitors should still be mindful that many of the roads and the paths through Yosemite remain covered in snow and ice, and they also warn that change may be required on short notice. Up next tonight here on West Coast Wrap, birth control pills sold like aspirin. Coming up, what to expect from drugstores selling the pill over the counter for the first time. Plus, an Arizona woman gives her father the gift of life. What she's hoping to accomplish now after donating her kidney. The first over-the-counter birth control pill is due to be available in U.S. stores later this month. Manufacturer Perrigo announced today it's begun shipping the medication Opill to major drugstores. A 1-month supply will cost about $20 and a 3-month supply about $50. It will also be sold online. The launch has been closely watched since last July when the FDA said the once-a-day O-pill could be sold without a prescription. The company noted there will be no age restrictions on sales, similar to other over-the-counter medications. Alaska Airlines is facing a $1 billion lawsuit filed by 3 passengers who were on that flight where a door panel blew off in midair. The suit claims that accident was caused by negligence and resulted in the 3 passengers suffering severe mental, emotional, and psychological injuries. Back in January, a door plug came loose from the aircraft minutes into a flight from Portland to Southern California. Boeing is already being sued by its shareholders and is still under investigation by the NTSB and the FAA. JetBlue and Spirit Airlines ending their proposed $3.8 billion merger after a court ruling blocked it. JetBlue said that even though both companies still believe in the benefits of a combination, they say they were unlikely to meet the required closing conditions before the July 24th deadline. The Justice Department sued to block that merger last year, saying it would reduce competition and drive up fares, especially for travelers who depend on low-fare Spirit. A young woman in Arizona donated a kidney to save her father's life, and now she's proving that you can still be active with just one kidney. Fox 10's Kenzie Beach has more on the woman's transplant journey and her mission to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Was crying because I was really excited because the news meant not only that I would be able to donate a kidney to my dad, but we found out that I did not have his disease.
Sibley Brown was 26 years old when she found out she could give her father, Curtis, a second chance at life. Curtis knew he had a kidney disease for years, but figured a deceased donor would be the answer, but his body couldn't wait for one.
My dad was told that the wait for a deceased donor kidney would be 7 to 10 years, and his life expectancy was probably 3 to 5.
At such a young age, her father was hesitant on how this would impact the rest of her life, but Sibley gave him no choice.
Pretty humbling. I didn't want them to do it. She said to me, I'm going to give it to somebody, so if you don't want it.
It left a lasting impact on the whole family for the better. It gave Sibley new motivation to prove to herself she could do just as much as one kidney as she could with 2.
I was back to running about 6 weeks after the surgery, and I celebrated my 1-year donation anniversary by running my first half marathon.
Curtis never had to go through dialysis. His body happily accepted his daughter's kidney, meaning the family will continue to celebrate new life milestones together.
He'd be around to walk me and my sister down the aisle, and that he'd be around to be a grandfather.
The Brown family says it changed their whole perspective on living donations and gave Sibley a new community to be a part of. Sibley and 13 other kidney donors and 1 transplant surgeon from all over the world will make the one kidney climb up Mount Kilimanjaro to show how active you can be with just one kidney.
And that was Fox 10's Kenzie Beach reporting for us tonight. March is National Kidney Month, and right now there are more than 90,000 people here in the U.S. who are waiting for a kidney transplant. Finally tonight, the growing Mega Millions jackpot has become the game's 7th biggest prize in history. Tomorrow night's jackpot is expected to be worth at least $650 million. You can buy a Mega Millions ticket in every West Coast state with the exception of Nevada, Utah, Hawaii, and Alaska. And a reminder about your odds, they're around 1 in 302 million, but that will not stop a lot of folks from playing. We know that much. Thank you for watching West Coast Wrap tonight. A reminder, all of the stories we're covering are up at westcoastwrap.com. Have a great night. See you back here tomorrow.